Welcome back to another episode of Pushing Back Chaos with me, and you got Raf's hand just to welcome everybody. It's the perfect timing there from the Espinosa, just face palming everybody out there in YouTube world. But how you guys doing out there? I hope you guys are getting after it, that you're getting some clarity around goals, that you are working where you can to resolve any breakdowns that have been occurring in your life. Because these are the things that really hold us back. I hope that these conversations are beneficial to you. We love hearing from you. Love sending in any topics, question ideas that you'd like us to work through, stuff that's important to you. But welcome to another episode with us. How you going there, Raf?
I'm good, mate. I'm good, man. Just hanging out in Austin, Texas for a layover. Heading out in a couple hours. Couple pit stops before I get back to the Pacific Northwest. So no complaints, man. It's good. It's busy, but it's good.
And are you having time to get out and see what makes Austin weird?
No, we got in kind of late last night, and some of the crew members did go out. I just was like, nah, I'd rather wake up, go to the gym, and I knew I had to see you next Tuesday. So I was like, I'm not gonna give up sleep. So yeah. So you basically ruined my night, is what I wanted to say.
Yeah. And how about you, Mike? How you going, man?
I'm doing pretty well. Good morning from the East Coast. If I'm being honest, I kind of had I had a good productive week, but just being blatantly honest, I failed. I failed twice this week. And the only thing I can do is really take ownership of it, which I think I did. One was a relationship / communication issue that I worked through and then acknowledged my part in it and was able to work it out successfully. And but it wouldn't happen unless I didn't own up to it. So I messed that up this week. And then another one was a leadership failure on my end. I hold myself very high in accountability, and I won't get into all of it, but I missed something as a leader when it came to a safety thing. And nobody got hurt or anything like that, but it was definitely something I should have looked at a little bit closer. And I didn't. I felt a little bit overconfident. And my expectations were a little bit different than they should have been. And I should have just went back to the basics. But I overlooked something. And like I said, nobody got hurt, but it was definitely a lesson learned. And I wrote myself up for a counseling sheet. So I wrote up my own report on myself and then had my superior sign it, because I want them to know, and I want my guys that I lead to know, that I'm not escaping accountability, that if I mess up, I'm going to own it and demonstrate it. And then I also sat down and briefed both ends on why I failed and where my mindset was, and then set the new goal going forward so that it doesn't happen again. And woke up today, did a 5K in the morning, and moving on, and hey, we move forward, so
such positive stuff to hear, Mike. Like, the only people who don't have breakdowns are the people who are bullshitting you that they don't have any breakdowns, right? And they're coming down the pipe for all of us, and we've all had them. I just really want to commend you for your honesty in resolving the comms breakdown in that relationship one. But professionally, all the safety, all of the whole operation, anything that you do, anything that Raf and I do, which there is risk in all of it. The only thing that puts a foundation under any of it is that people put their hand up and are able to have the integrity to let others know and then learn the lessons. So all the standard operating procedures and standing instructions and checklists and everything, they're all, some of them are written in blood, and a lot more of them are written in near misses that people have been able to take get the shame and any negativity out of the way, get the lesson out for people. And then, there's a lot of learning to do. The famous accident triangle, where you've got the one accident at the top, you got the 30 near misses and the 300 minor incidents. And it's the tracking of those, non-fatal or the ones where there wasn't, by luck or whatever on that day, the negative outcome didn't come about. But if you don't have the info, and no one's talking about it, then you get doomed only to have the catastrophic failure. So, mate, massive integrity. I'll take my hat off.
Well, I take my hat off to you guys because, last week we did that episode on the importance of your reputation. And we always hold each other accountable for that, whether we're talking about it on the show or not, but it's just daily practice, right? And when it happened and I was driving home, I listened to that episode over again, and I was listening to the both of you talk about certain things. And literally I was like, man, okay, I need to absorb this, dissect it, learn the lessons from it. How can I communicate this back in a positive way, take ownership of it? And then I showed up the next morning, wrote up my own counseling, and then walked over to my immediate leadership and was like, hey, I want you to sign this, and then I sat down with my guys in the morning when we put out word. And it's just like, hey, I want everybody to know that this happened yesterday and this is why it happened and it's my fault. And I take responsibility for it. This is how we could have done better. And for the future, this is how we're going to do better so we don't do it again. And then, everybody knew that, I signed myself up. And I'm not doing that to, whatever. It's strictly to be like, hey, I don't get a pass because I'm a certain rank or I'm in a position. It's like, no, dude, my standard is even higher now. And I'm going to share that with you. You know what I mean? So it was just important. And I think it's important to share on here because we talk a lot. Maybe sometimes people hear us and they're like, oh, these guys are on their soapbox and they got it all figured out. It's like, fuck no. No. Like we still make mistakes all the time or whatever. It's just, how do you go about them? Which I think today's topic is kind of going to flow right in with this conversation here. So anyways, Raf, if you want to turn over, I know we're a little bit of a time crunch today, but if you want to go ahead and kind of introduce the topic, bro.
Yeah, man, absolutely. And yeah, dude, hats off, like Melon said. That's pretty ballsy to do that and to really just, I guess, I'll talk about it later, but I heard a phrase called hug the cactus, like that, the ugly side inside you. Like it's pretty powerful, but I'll get back to that in a little bit. But anyways, man, that's pretty badass. So the topic is on how to deal with a setback or significant loss and I don't necessarily just mean like a loved one. I mean, like something significant that happens to you where it's going to result in a negative way. It's going to completely negatively affect your life and how you can deal with that. So kind of a backstory with me, and it's actually kind of a funny story only because of the way it turned out was, so I recently took vacation this month, and my wife and I were planning on going to Nicaragua. Ended up not happening because of a bunch of stuff that's happening at home, like good things, not bad things. But because of scheduling conflicts and that sort of thing, we ended up, and we had tickets. I mean, everything was set up. We're going to go down there. We're going to surf for a couple of weeks and take little man and just do something cool, now that COVID and all the insanity is over. But that didn't work out. But I still had my vacation. So finally we decided like, hey, you know what? I'll just go down to SoCal and visit my parents and have little man be around this Tito and this Nana, which he's always talking about. He loves them to death. So I was like, yeah, we'll just head down there. So, great couple of weeks, great podcast episodes. I'm high as a kite. Everything's just kind of in sync. And I'm feeling really, really good. So I landed in California, like on a Saturday night. And as soon as I landed there, I went and got like a 1 week pass at this place called Anytime Fitness. It's not far from my parents' house. So I'm working out pretty religiously and I'm feeling really good. I'm waking up like about 5 every morning, going to the gym, waking up and then being home before my son wakes up because we're sleeping in the same room. And either Sunday night or Monday morning, I noticed that when I urinate, it kind of stings. Like it literally hurts. And I'm wondering, what the hell is that about? Did I just touch a bit of soap at the tip of my member, or I'm trying to because we've all done it. We've all had the shampoo go down there and it's not comfortable. So I kind of I write it off, right? I'm like, all right, this is nothing. Again, we do a bunch of stuff. We go to the beach. We're doing like a day at the park. I mean, it's just like I'm jam packed. I jam packed the day for my son. And then as the week goes on, I start to notice other symptoms. Like now, so this is Monday. No, this is going on Tuesday now. The painful urination has increased a little bit, and I see what appears to be 2 black dots on the side of my member, and I'm like, huh, did I just get bit by a spider? Like I'm trying to like run down the like what could possibly give me 2 dots on the side of my member, and obviously I'm keeping it PG or else I'd be telling like the real story, but. Simultaneously, I start to notice that when I sit down, it's kind of uncomfortable, like almost like I'm sitting on like an ingrown hair on my, and I have hairy legs, so I get ingrown hairs all the time, especially when I'm like running or lifting, or especially squatting. I notice after after high repetitions of squatting, I usually have like ingrowns around my thighs and my hamstrings, but this one's like on my buttocks. So I'm like, huh. Okay, I guess it's just the cost of being hairy. So another day goes by. It's Wednesday now, and the 2 dots have basically like expanded and turned into 1. So now it's basically like a black scab / rash / I don't know what it is. Now by this time, like I'm starting to lose my mind. Like now I'm trying to focus on being home and being with my parents, because there was some stuff we were dealing with my mom's health. And also all the attention Soren wanted. But my mind is locked in on whatever the hell is going on downstairs. And I can't for the life of me figure out why I've got this. And now backstory, I've never been outside of my marriage. I know my wife's never been outside of our marriage. So I'm like, okay, it's not an STD, but is it an STD? You know what I mean? Like it's hard not to go down the rabbit hole. And that's exactly what I did. I went on Google countless times, and I went from like, monkeypox, herpes mixed in with like chlamydia to like cancer to like HPV. I mean, like just the laundry list, right? And none of the symptoms that I could see kind of matched what I had, but it just felt like it was something, in that department. And which scared me even more, because again, how do you explain to your wife that you have an STD, but you've never cheated on her? Or how do you how do you unpack that shit? So I'm trying to keep my cool. Like I'm really, really trying to keep my cool. And by the way, no one knew anything about this at the time. And I'm just trying to figure this shit out. Finally, Friday. Yeah, it was Friday morning, or no, Thursday night. I did another inspection, and things seemed to be getting worse. The ingrown hairs on my buttocks actually grew in number, and they grew in size. So now I'm convinced. I'm like, this has got to be an STD. Like, how is it not an STD? How is it not some sort of, because I can't think of anything else, and nothing that I'm looking at on Google is even matching what I have, but it's kind of, there's some similarities. And I still have that nasty, sore rash thing, which again, that alone is like enough to like, trust me when I tell you, like, you don't know what the hell is going on. Your world is upside down, but I'm trying to be cool. Like I'm literally trying to be cool. I can't sit down on the couch and have conversations, but I was doing it anyways, just to keep kind of an even keel. And then finally Friday morning, I was like, all right, whatever this is, I need to just own it. Whatever the hell it is, I need a diagnosis. If it's medicine I need to take, then I'll take the medicine, but something, clearly my body is being attacked, or it's got something. So I go to this outpatient clinic. Believe it or not, they really can't figure out what it is. And the doc basically gives me a couple options, like, hey, he was going to test me for like STDs, but I was leaving the very next day. He's like, hey, I could test you, but it's going to take 2 to 3 days to come back with a panel. So it's up to you. You can either do it now, we'll give you the results in a couple of days, or you can just go home, go see your primary care physician, and then they could similarly do the same stuff, and insurance covers it, blah, blah, blah. So that's kind of what we left off at. But the thing that was alarming was that he was like, hey, I don't think it's an STD if what you tell me is true. He's like, it could be like maybe some crazy form of herpes that like you've had dormant for your entire life, and then it just kind of came back, or just kind of came out and surfaced. And I was like, well, even that's not good. Even that sounds fucking terrible, And like, if that was the best option, I'm like, I don't know what I don't want to know what the worst option is. So but I do remember he's like, hey, do you mind if I take a picture and send it? Like he had another doctor friend that basically doctor friend that I guess like he wasn't a dermatologist, but apparently he had more knowledge about the skin stuff. So I was like, yeah. At this point, I'm like, dude, send it to your mom. Send it to. I don't really care. Just get the panel of experts looking at this so we can put put this fire out. Literally, this fire. And so he sends it. He's like, hey, I'll come back in a couple of minutes and we'll talk about, whatever he thinks. So he comes back like 15 minutes later. He's like, yeah, he looking at the pictures, he doesn't really know. He said he does recommend that you see a dermatologist as soon as you can. So now in the back of my mind, I'm like, do I have cancer? Like, is this how I go? Like cancer of the crotch and the anus? Like, that's not, anyways, needless to say, man, it's full. It's all hands on deck. And my mind is spinning. And now I go back to, cause I'm driving my dad's truck. I go back to the truck after that visit, that fruitless visit. And I'm trying to compartmentalize what's happening. Cause now I'm like, okay, I'm still a father. I still have things I need to roll. There's still roles. And here's this massive fucking thing on my shoulder. And it's really hard to concentrate. But I remember thinking to myself, I have to call my wife. I have to tell my wife that something is going on. So again, how do you unpack? How do you tell your wife, hey, I think I might have an STD, but I've never cheated on you? Like, how does that go over, And then having that difficult conversation, like, have you been in with anybody without being insulting? And it was luckily, man, hats off to her. She was super cool about the whole thing. We actually made a couple of jokes, which really helped with the whole levity, just making it a little bit more easier to talk about. But, once we got off the phone and I was sitting in that parking lot, I remember thinking to myself, all right, I don't have control. I don't have control of anything that, going forward. I really don't. Like, I was kind of just at the hands of whatever the hell it was, even though at this time I only got more afraid. Not like actually going to that outpatient care was actually the worst thing I could have done. Cause now my brain was like all over the place. Cause best case scenario, I've got some rare case of herpes. Worst case scenario, like I'm going to die of like penile cancer. You mean like it wasn't a great visit. So, I immediately make an appointment that Friday morning. So it was like the day after I landed. So it would have been a Monday to go visit my primary care. And, it was a very somber moment in the Espinosa household, for a couple of, not just because of my situation. There's some other stuff that was going on, and it was, but we managed. So Monday I go in there, I see my primary care wasn't there. It was another doc, but, she was phenomenal. And, so I give her the same story that I gave you guys. Obviously she's inspecting and she's looking and I did take pictures as things were progressing. So I was like, hey, if you want to see the progression, here's the picture. She's like, yeah. So, all these people have just seen my junk, but I mean, in the span of a week, I've probably showed my junk to like just random, professionals, I guess. So, long story longer, man. As soon as I drop trow and I give her all my symptoms, it was some uncomfortable positions, but she's inspecting, close inspection, tells me to do an about face. And as soon as I did that, she goes, you have shingles. And I was like, what? She's like, have you ever had chickenpox? I was like, yeah. She's like, you have textbook shingles. The interesting part was about this is also a medical lesson for everybody. So the interesting part is what I left out was all of my symptoms were just on the left side of my body, meaning it was just on the left side of my penis and was just on the left side of my buttocks, which to me, there was no I had thought about that. I was like, that's kind of weird that it's just on the one side, but I just thought maybe that was just the side that got infected or whatever it was that had just infected me. And she's like, yeah, she's like, you have textbook shingles. She's like, basically what happened is when the virus attacked your body or, when it was dormant, it came back up and attacked your whatever nerve root, it happened to be on the left side. So it's being expressed on the left side. Anyways, you can only imagine the sense of sigh and relief that I got after because I'm like, oh, I'm not a dirty son of a bitch. It's not my past coming to haunt me. And it wasn't, the women of ill repute that I was frequenting. It was just like, oh, I've got shingles. And come to find out, and again, I'm not I am an anti-vaxxer, not now that I know what I know, but I was vaccinated. And apparently there's an uptick. After all this, I find out there's an uptick of people who had chickenpox as kids who were vaccinated are having similar episodes. Now, it's probably not in the same region as me. It's probably somewhere else, but there's an uptick. Like there's a significant uptick. But yeah, she didn't even look surprised. She was like, yeah, you've got shingles. And I was like, oh, thank God. So, anyways, gave me some medicine. Everything's great. All the plumbing is patched up and it's working, and there's no leaky faucets. I'd like to let the world know.
Jesus.
Yeah, man. So anyway, but this topic isn't about my body falling apart. This topic really is
hold on. We got to unpack it a lot here, dude. Holy shit.
I don't know about you, Mike, but I'm pretty sure that this very public storytelling is all just about that trip you did to Tijuana the other week. And super complicated cover story. You're like, I'm gonna have to get on the episode and really go into detail on this story to gross everyone out.
Dude, I don't even know what to say. I know everybody can't see me, but I'm literally like sitting in my chair at my desk here, and I'm like starting to feel tingles in different spots. It's just like when you see an injury and then you feel it, and you're like, oh shit, something's wrong. Like, dude, I'm starting to question everything the longer he goes on.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Put yourself in my shoes.
I was hearing men, fathers, men in a microcosm, like, how far will we let it go before we go to a doctor? Like, is that shit going to fall off? Land on the floor before we go and talk to someone about it?
Oh my God. Mr. Espinosa, we're here to inform you of two things. One, you have shingles, and two, we're very sorry for the size of your member.
Actually, I will say the first thing she did was she took a breath. She's like, that's impressive. And then she's like, and you have shingles.
just blow your ego up and then just completely deflate it.
Yeah. No.
Oh my God.
But again, I really want to get back to like the whole moral of the story, which was like, this was I'm laughing about it now, but trust me when I tell you that entire week, the level of stress that I was feeling every day, every time I woke up, it's wishful thinking, like maybe I'll look down and it's all going to be good. But I could feel that things were getting worse down there. So every time, of course, I would look, I'm like, yep, I confirmed the way I feel. But at some point, like I said, and there was really two moments, right before I walked into both clinics, it's like you're basically like going in there going, okay, I'm going to get whatever diagnosis I'm about to get. I mean, I can't put a finger on what the hell is going on. I mean, and mind you, in my mind, I'm thinking my marriage is going to fall apart, because how do you convince your spouse that I haven't been with anybody? If I was to get some sort of STD diagnosis, like genuinely, like I've never been with anybody, and I just like you basically, like my mind was quickly going into like visions of my life just falling apart. And so I eventually, at some point, I had to just kind of take the reins of it and just be like, you know what, this isn't like, it's not the end. It's not the end of me, right? Like you have to just, there are things that you're going to be giving in this life, and you have to just accept them. And there's really no way around it. Like you can't make them better. You can't fucking put a Band-Aid on it. You're like, you just have to literally accept it. And there's some weird sense of peace that comes when you finally accept it, as ugly as it is. And like I said, it was Robert Downey Jr. who was giving the speech, and he was talking about how Mel Gibson, when he was at his lowest, Mel Gibson reached out to him and said, hey, the secret to coming back, or the secret to a fulfilled life, is you have to hug the cactus. And what he meant was like, you have to hug the thing that's kind of destroying your life, that ugly caricature that you've created, that monster. And like, once you've hugged it, it'll actually humble you, because it's painful, right? Hugging cactus is painful. It'll humble you. And that humbleness is what's going to save you and give you salvation and redemption. So I remember like I found this, when the reason I found it so meaningful is because I kind of found this between my two visits. So again, it went from bad to like in my head worse, because now it's like some crazy herpes simplex, whatever, or like cancer. It's like that was the spectrum, which none of those were good. But I remember thinking like, okay, I have to eventually just accept this, and I have to just cope with it, because clearly I had negative psychological thoughts, and not that I was ever thinking of self-harm, but I remember thinking like, if this is a bad diagnosis, like maybe I'm just, I'd be all right if I got hit by a car, whatever, just to not see the pain of my wife, like I said, because I remember thinking like, how do you tell your spouse, I've never cheated on you, but here's this thing. And then how do you trust? Yeah.
What I kind of, holy shit, man, like I need to get my mind in a different perspective, because I just picture you with your pants down pointing going, look at it, just look at it. This is a crazy image. When you came up and you talked about this last night and you're like, hey man, I kind of want to talk about finding peace after a loss or a significant event and how to kind of move forward. Number one, for the public, I was not aware of the story. Neither was Melon. And if
Nobody was.
Yeah. If anybody's still listening at this point, wow. We're going to attempt to switch gears a little bit, but we're going to keep Raf's member in our mind, apparently, for this topic. A couple things I wrote down. It was like, yeah, man, one, this is a really good topic, because, you talked about the anxiety and the fear of accepting whatever the hell that was. And it was a physical thing. But what about emotional things, mental things, those things that like you want to sweep under the rug and you don't want to tell anybody. And, you think it's going to fix everything in the short term, but in the long term, when you look at it, God, are you going to suffer if you don't address it? And like Raf said, hug the cactus. That is applicable across the spectrum. Absolutely. And, man, maybe jump in, Melon, we can talk about a couple. I'm not telling anybody about my member. I don't need to, but,
What can I say something real quick? Just to wrap up my little story. And so obviously shingles, there's an uptick, especially if you've been vaccinated and you had chickenpox, you're going to get it. But the end of all this is I live happily ever after, and it's strong like bull, lasts a long time. So don't worry about me. Don't worry about old Tio. Tio strong like bull, lasts a long time. So anyways, let's move on.
I love you, Raf. Oh my God.
The best phrase in there, I just want to say, there was 3 words. I wrote them down: scabs on cock. Like, I could go really a long time without hearing those 3 words put together again. I just personal preference. But I didn't know the start story. I knew that the topic was finding peace after a significant setback or loss. Interesting. My one as well is got to do with embracing the new normal, choosing the bad news that you've been given, that everything in you is rejecting, and you're digging your heels in and you don't want to hear. And the times when that's happened for me is when my wife Cherry's waters broke at 22 weeks with our first child, and the doctors pretty much told us that was that, game over for the first child. And then she went on to deliver our daughter at the first day of the 23rd week. And Annie was just over a pound when she was born. And it was 3 months. There wasn't any good news. It was just she's going to die from this. Or she survived. Oh, she's going to die from this. And it was just like that for 3 months. And the second time that I really had to deal with myself with bad news was when Cherry was diagnosed with cancer. Feeling like we're going around the boy again for what have we done wrong here to get a second helping of this really serious health issues? And I will say that the earlier you can transition mentally into the place of this is normal now, that there is a time that will come that whatever the health issue or whatever the bad news is just part of your life. And if you can get your energy and your mentality and your emotions and your spiritual focus moving forward into it, exactly the same sense. I've not ever heard the term hug the cactus. Mine was choosing the bad news and embracing the new normal. Like you had a certain life, and then this thing has occurred and it's a different life now. And in a year or 2 years, you're going to be totally comfortable with it. You're going to be living your best life in that new situation. It's the transition that's painful. And, coming home from the hospital with a vision impaired daughter, she's still like there's no change in that situation. She's vision impaired, but she's a vision impaired 16-year-old now. She's amazing. There's a lot of beauty and happiness and fulfillment and so on that I never knew were going to be there. And I can remember the moment they told me, the doctors told me Annie was going to be vision impaired, for example, that she was going to be legally blind. And that was massively distressing. And all of the suffering occurs in the resistance. So the not wanting to happen, the reality that's occurring, is where the suffering occurs. And so if you can transition past that, you can get back into like productive engagement with doctors, for example. You're not in a state of shock. You're not, just wishing that this bad movie would end. You're in it. You're back into taking action and moving forward. But the first step, I like you and Raf, hug the cactus. You also have said in the past, put the ugly baby on the table. For me, it was choosing the bad news, like as an active, I choose this. And it's a difficult sentence to say. And then getting into the place where you're embracing the new normal is where you get back your power and your ability to make a difference in that reality. And I've done that twice with really serious bad news, really serious health news. So they're my 2 bits.
Melon, I thought that was a lot more presentable way of talking about the topic. But yeah, no, I remember you talking about, Annie and Cherry before when she had cancer and kind of, where do we go from here? And I honestly, when I was taking notes on my drive back from my run this morning, I did think about Annie and Cherry and kind of lessons that you've shared and talked about. And same with you, Raf, these almost 3 years that we've been doing this show, we've all been through hard times and failures and moving on and different things. And how I broke this topic down is kind of the old me and how I did things versus now what I choose to do. Like Melon said, you choose it. And just how I wrote it is finding peace after a loss. And that loss can be a person, an opportunity, a job, a position. Like you could put whatever you want in there. And I look at the old me and it was like, okay, if I lost something or someone, what was the old me like? And the first word I wrote down was anger. I was angry that I lost. I was angry that I didn't meet the mark. And I wanted to be angry at other things or other people, but I knew deep down I was most angry with myself because I didn't measure up. And I was like, no, this isn't fair. I deserve this or something, right? I was trying to force it because of my own belief. I then filled myself with self-doubt. Like you start looking back, where did I go wrong? And how did this happen? And this didn't just appear, and you start beating the crap out of yourself. And then somewhere along the line, I think when a massive failure comes, you have that feeling in some way, shape, or form that I'm not good enough. Like if I was good enough, this never would have happened. I could have prevented this, something. And then you start having this thing, at least I did, is where I start comparing myself to others where, well, this person has this job. Well, this person has this position, or this person's better looking than I am, or this person is more successful than I am. And why am I a piece of shit, and going there. And then when you're trying to like figure out, like, is this ever going to end? Is the rest of my life going to be this shitty and feel like this the rest of my life? It's just that initial wall of failure that just punches you in the mouth. And then you start thinking, and some of the worst advice I've ever received, and I followed it, and I admit this. Hey, peace will come on its own. Just keep going. And I think that is completely wrong. And what Raf's talking about. In Raf's situation, if he would just be like, I don't need to address it. I don't need to face it, whatever. It'll just fix itself and everything will turn out fine. Obviously, that wouldn't be the case. If Melon was there and he's going, oh, yeah, my daughter's vision impaired and, Cherry has cancer or whatever. Well, it'll all work itself out. I'll be fine and take no action, no responsibility, not accepting anything. No, there has to be action. There has to be an acceptance and ownership of it. And again, just on my drive after a run, you know, you always come off that runner's high or a good swim and you have clarity. And I really looked at myself. I was like, man, who am I now? I know what I was, but where am I at now? And honestly, if I lose at something, if I lost someone, a situation, like I failed this week, you know, I own that. I failed this week. I lost. The first thing I go to is gratefulness. First, absolutely gratefulness. I'm grateful that I even had that person or this opportunity in my life. Some people will never have it. Some people will never have them, the person. Just flat out. You know what? Hey, I lost it, or I lost this person. I'm grateful I even had it. Right. And that's kind of where I start. I also have the mentality now that I win or I learn. And there's no more loss, because even in a loss, you can find the things to go. Find where I did win and where I got better. And from there, it's already like I went from 0 to 6%. I gained 6% in my failure. So I still gained, I still won. I asked myself, can I or do I even want to try this again? Can I try again? Yeah. Okay, dude, you can try as many times as you want. There's no number on this, like some things. Or, hey, do I even want to try this again? Was this even worth it? Is this where my heart's at? Is this what I want to do? You know, ask yourself that question. And if the answer is no, you know, one thing I wrote down is, hey, you know what? If I'm not able to do it anymore, well, I'm going to help another succeed at it. Right? I want to help somebody else maybe get their goal. Maybe it wasn't for me, but maybe I can help somebody else achieve their goal that maybe they didn't think they could do, or that I could share that in their story and make it bigger than myself. It's not just about me, but you know, we talk about relationships and pushing each other. And then my last point I kind of wrote down is like, how do I find peace? I smile because I still can. Even in the worst thing, like Raf told this atrocious, disgusting story, but he's laughing at the end of it. And we're all laughing, right? Smile, man. Like even the worst things can bring laughter and humor. And I have endless stories about, you know, my life, military service, being in the community that I am. You know, I've been in situations where, you know, it's life and death, and I look over at my buddy and we just start laughing at each other like, this fucking sucks, you know, and they're like, yeah, it kind of does, doesn't it? And it's like the worst situation possible, but man, you're still alive, you're still in the moment, you're in the opportunity, and it's like, this isn't going to last, and we're going to move forward, and we're going to find some really good things out of this. We're never going to forget this, right? And this is a blessing. So that's how I formulated this topic, you know, like how to move forward in a good way and how to address things, take ownership. I like both of your stories, you know, and I didn't really think of one specifically, but I just kind of blanket it now across, and that's my values. That's my standard. That's my filter when I do meet failure now. And it's taken a long time to build, but I'm definitely glad I have it.
I've got one as well, that when you're able to, like, the mentality that I really love is that I either win or I learn. And when you realize that there's going to be a sine curve, there's going to be days where you're up and there's days when you're down, and the older you are and the more experience you have, the more you see those, that it's like a seasonal, you know, you're going to have your summer days and your winter days in your life, in your personal relationships, in your communication professionally. And that if you can play a long game and you're not like, this immediate setback doesn't have to define you, you're playing a long game, and it's never going to be 100-0 at halftime and 200-0 at full time. That's not what life is like. You're going to have unfortunate mischance. You're going to make an arsehole of yourself from time to time as well. And so when you can have that mentality of, these are lifelong relationships I have, and these are, you know, it's a lifetime journey, that when these setbacks occur, if you can carry that mentality of the lifelong learner, or the winner or learn, it doesn't have to occur to you in the same way. Like, don't get me wrong, when the bad news comes, it's never, you know, you never want it. But, you know, life goes on. And there are people out there who would trade everything they've got on their best day for what you have in your life on your worst day. And it's true. And there are people out there who are in those situations and they are still smiling and finding joy in the day. And, you know, maintaining a perspective and thinking this is a long game I'm playing. You don't have to get broken by the setback. You can choose to have a lifelong learner mentality like Mike just described. And that's certainly, I mean, Churchill had the quote of success is going from failure to failure without any loss of enthusiasm.
Mm.
You know, you just got to get up one more time, then you get knocked down, right? Were you going to jump in there, Raf?
Yeah, I was going to add to all that, to all of our experiences. You know, it is okay to, because you are going to go through like a plethora of like emotions and as you process this whole thing, right? So, like for instance, in the beginning, I went through the denial phase. Like the first couple of days, I was like in denial phase. Like, there's no way this is happening to me. Like, no, this is not a big deal. Like, this will go away when I wake up tomorrow. Clearly, it wasn't going away, and then it went to, why me? It's, you know, it's like, why is this happening to me? Like, what the hell did I do? Why do I deserve this? Like, I didn't do anything wrong. Like, I'm trying to be the best human I could possibly be. Why is this happening? Like, why is this coming to me now? You know, and then there's like, eventually, like, and there's a couple other little things that I experienced, but then I think when I finally reached, I forgot what you call it, but I've heard it as positive reframing. So basically, you take the bad news and you just kind of like learn to live with it. I think that's when I knew that was the end goal, but it was going to take me a while to get there. And I'm just basically saying to you guys and listeners is like, hey, it's okay to let yourself go through the trenches, so to speak, and just kind of get all those other emotions out of the way, but have a goal. And my goal was eventually to get to a place where I would just accept it. Now it took me, it took me a while to get there, but the point is I did get there, right? I remember on my last visit with my primary care, I remember just thinking to myself, hey, no matter what the result, like, it is what it is, keep moving forward. You know, like, your focus is still your son. It's still your wife, even if she divorces you. Like, it's still to give them the life that you want to give them. It's still keeping your career forward. It's like, I started looking at the things that I still had my responsibility for. And that kind of helped me just kind of accept whatever the hell was going to come through once I walked through that door, right? Mm-hmm. Like, this was before I walked inside that door. I was already like setting myself up for the worst possible scenario. Like, just whatever the hell, I couldn't even put my finger on it, but I was like, whatever it is, man, it's not going to define you. You can get through this, and there's people that depend on you. And honestly, that eventually brought me that kind of positive reframing. It's like that peace. Like, it's the only way I can define it is I remember just feeling at ease. Like, all right, give me whatever you've got. I'm ready. You know.
I love that direction right there, Raf. The beginning of when Raf was sitting there saying, "Why me? Why did I deserve this? Why?" That word has haunted everybody. That word lived in my mind for I don't know how long. Why? If you notice, right in the second half of Raf's explanation, he started looking at the what. Replace the why with the what, because you may never get the why, right? The person may never tell you. You may never get a solid description about the medical exam, like whatever. It's what do I do right now with what I have? And what could be, what am I going to do? That's going to start that path of finding a solution, finding peace, finding acceptance. Take out the why and start asking the what. What can I do now that this has happened? And that is such a good, powerful tool, man. I'm glad you said it that way. That's honestly what got me out of many situations these last couple of years, is because shit like that Raf and Melon has said to me is like, dude, like I always said, like Raf called me out when I was crying and bitching and all this stuff. And he's like, dude, what do you think's going to happen when you're sitting there going, why? You think God's going to call you on a cell phone and be like, hey, Mike, like, you know why all those happen? Well, let me explain to you. It's just like, it's never going to happen. It's up to us to make the personal decisions and be like, what am I going to do now that this has happened? This is part of my story. This is part of my life. I get to choose how the next chapter is written with what the cards I've been given. Right? It's beautiful. It's so simple. It's beautiful.
And one last thing to add to that, and it's just a reminder, because it was a reminder to myself that we ultimately have the power to decide how much energy we give these issues, right? Because in the beginning, it fucking overwhelmed. Like, it gradually got to the point where it was all I could think about. Like, literally, I remember specifically sitting in my parents' house and Soren wanting to play, but I didn't want to be like, I just couldn't respond to him the way I needed to, because I was so overwhelmed with the idea of, like, you know, like, of this whole health issue this crisis that I was going through. But I remember, like, as I finally got control of my thoughts, I was able to, like, kind of put in perspective, like, you know what, this is just one factor of whatever the outcome is. This is one factor, and I'm going to decide that it's not going to run my life, right? Again, it didn't happen overnight. It was a process. I had to think about it, meditate it, go through all the emotions, go through, your dirtbag to, like, no, you can fight this, to no, you are a piece of shit. You've got, like, some version of monkeypox no one's ever seen. Like, it's, you feel dirty, you feel whatever. The point is, I had to get all that stuff out of my system. And then I finally chose, like, you know what? This is not going to define the rest of my life. I'm going to compartmentalize. I'm going to put this where it needs to be, and I will deal with it when I need to deal with it. But I've got this life that I need to live, right? Like, I still have a purpose. I'm still a father. I'm still a husband. I'm still a friend. People are still going to depend on me. So yeah, I mean, it was a really, really humbling experience. I'll just leave it at that. Like, it's funny looking back, and that's why I wanted to share it. And even though it is kind of personal, but it was a massive learning experience for me, because it was condensed in a week, like, 7 or 8 days. And it was real. Like, for a while, when I didn't have the outcome, I was like, shit, this is pretty significant.
I have one thing real quick, and I'll turn over to Melon. I want to share is the question is, how do I know God is real? If you listen to the last, I don't know how many episodes we've done, over 100 and some, Raf continuously pokes at me and says, "Oh, I know you're gay. You have monkeypox." And I would just sit there quiet at night and think of Raf and go, God, please just get him back, please. And now that I hear this story, I know God is 100% real, and we're both laughing at you today. So thank God for what he gave you this week, you turd.
No, he didn't give it to me. It wasn't him. It was Fauci. But that's another episode. That fucking jabroni. Anyways.
Oh my God.
We're gonna get canceled.
When you were talking in there, Raf, and you were talking about the state of, like, you had a state of peace that descended upon you. I can remember sitting with the oncologist, the cancer specialist in South Australia with Cherry, and we were going in, and they'd had the detection of the cancer. So there'd been a pain, and they'd done a scan, and they saw a mass, and then they took a tissue sample, and we had to wait for that to get the type. Did a PET scan, and they found that it was, whatever it was stage 2. Now it's already above and below the diaphragm. And we're waiting for this diagnosis of what is the cell type. So it had detection, staging, we're waiting for this diagnosis. And I'd done quite a bit of research, and it was the likely outcomes were, the mildest thing was going to be a type of tuberculosis, and the extreme right of arc was pretty horrendous cancers. And I talked with Cherry, and I was like, well, we're going to find out on Thursday. And we had, like, a pretty normal week from, like, the Tuesday to the Thursday when we had the appointment booked. And we're both pretty good. We have a discipline about dealing with this stuff of just, we're going to find out on that day, and just open the drawer, put the stuff in the drawer, close it, and know that you're going to come back to it. So we had some really nice, like, times with the kids, nice times with family, and then we went to the doctor and waiting to see him, and the stress was pretty high now, you could imagine. And when he told us that it was a Hodgkin's lymphoma, I'd done enough reading to have a massive wave of relief wash over me. I knew that this was on the left side of what could have been dealt to us. It was far from the worst. It's a very common cancer. They've got a lot of real expertise in how to treat it. And he sort of saw me and he thought I was freaking out. And I was like, no, I know that that's really, really freaking great news. And a massive sense of peace, of like just mass gratitude and thanks for, like, it's a strange thing to feel if you just thought like, hey, how would you feel if someone told you that tomorrow? But it's, I think, having a realistic sense of what the reality could be can give you that sense of gratitude when you look at it the right way and frame it the right way. And we had that several times along the process. You know, you've got to go in for a scan, you're going to find out the information on this day. And both of us really talking about it and being very intentional, saying, you know, this could all go really bad. We could find out that life is really going to go off a cliff and there's going to be a really massive negative bit of information could be coming in. This could be the last happy, carefree time we have. We're really going to be intentional and we're not going to fuck this part up by worrying about what's going to come next Thursday. And so having the intention and the commitment and doing it together, of opening the drawer, putting the wire in it, closing it, and then really genuinely engaging with family and the kids. And there's a lot of peace you can get to if you can get into this, embracing it and realizing that the beautiful moments you have are beautiful moments, and all of us have a finite number. Anyway, I just cued in there, Raf, when you're talking about, you know, the peace, that really I had that a few times. Just mass gratitude and peace that comes from a realistic awareness of what really could be coming down the pipe for any and all of us. And definitely transitioning, like Mike was saying, getting away from why is this happening to me, to what are the actions that I need to take given where I am now. So getting clarity around where you really are and where you want to go, and then what actions you can get the back wheels from spinning, getting back into contact with the ground and getting some movement forward.
Yeah. Melon, I'd like to add on to your part about, you know, what do I do now and going. Sometimes it's hard to find that what, right? You're so lost, you're in the hole, you're in that worry, you're stressed out, your mind's going up, you know, whatever. What helped me the most was I looked to other people who were in worse situations. And some of these people were put into my life and I didn't even search for them. You know, personally, I prayed a lot. You know, a couple of years ago, and I was in my bad spot. I was praying every day for me to get out of that hole. And, you know, I got random people that reach out to me, like Adam. You know, we talked a story about Adam, and he was dealing with mental health and suicidal thoughts. And I was like, man, well, I'm not that bad. He must be in a worse spot. You know what I mean? And then it started talking and figuring out things. And I was getting the lessons and the perspectives that I needed from other people in worse situations, because they were seeing life in a whole different view than I was. You know, I was pinholing myself into a dark hole, and I couldn't see or hear anything from outside of that. It was going and reaching out to other people, or them reaching out to me and being open to that, where I started learning more about life, where I was versus where other people were. And it changed my perspective. It changed that filter that I talked about. It's like, man, what am I complaining about? This isn't that big of a deal. Yeah, it sucks. But man, you know, like Raf got his news, but somebody just woke up this morning and learned they had stage 4 brain cancer and they have 3 months to live. You know what I mean? Like, it wasn't that. Why should I be so negative? You know, man, I was given a better thing, you know, in that sense. And that's how I started learning that, is by sometimes depending on other people to help me realize what the hell I did have. And it helped me build that plan of what am I going to do now?
Definitely part of that transition. Like, you use the word perspective, and that is a really powerful word. And having that awareness of it could be worse than this. It's like a stoic way of viewing the world, and some really powerful stuff in the Stoic philosophy about that I've definitely used in my hard times, that this could be worse. It could be, no shit, it could be worse. Even when you get that bad news, it could be worse than that. And you can gain a perspective. Now, Mike's talking about speaking with people who are in a worse position than you are, and nothing will bring it home like that. Much more powerful than just imagining. And when you can get in conversation and communication with people in a worse place, you will find that having your mind off yourself and in a, solution generation, idea generation for them will really help reduce your own sense of suffering, and you'll start finding those pathways for action that Mike's just been alluding to. That was really good, Mike. Thanks for throwing that in.
Yeah, and I know, hey, listen, I know we're going to wrap up because we pretty much hit our window. But I was just going to add my last 2 cents with at least the whole thing with me that I learned was, because Mike just hit it on the whole thing about perspective. And I realized that that's when everything kind of significantly changed for me. That's really when I started going towards like the road of redemption and finding peace. And I remember at one point, I just kind of made peace with the idea that like, I was going to just retire my peeper and I was never going to use it again. And as crazy as it sounds, I accepted that. Like, it's crazy that at my age that I literally thought to myself, yeah, I mean, I've had a good run. You know what I mean? Like hey, listen, this is the end for that department. And surprisingly, I took it really well. It's not decommissioned. It's actually back on commission again. But I'm just saying, like, the fact that I came to that realization, like with a sense of peace, is just, it's massive. And I know we're laughing, but I know that we all can relate. Like, what I'm trying to get to is, and stay with me, Melon, don't be a 2-year-old, is I think our biggest fear is change. But once you accept the change, you realize there's nothing to fear. Like, literally, it's that fear of the unknown, the fear of change. Like, it's all going to be different. It's going to blah, blah, blah. Once you've accepted the change, though, the fear has no power. It like literally just fucking melts away. And that was it. Again, I'm doing a funny analogy, but I'm being very honest about it. Like, I remember thinking, like, it's been a good run. Fuck, like, there's other parts of life other than just making love to my dime piece of a wife. I'm just saying, like, there's other perspectives and other things that you want to do. So anyways, that's my last 2 cents. I know we have to wrap up.
If you'd like to, you can leave condolences to Raf's peeper in the comments for the episode. I love that you called it a peeper, man. I know because of sword, and that's how you probably call it. But it's just
I got that from Aubrey, because that was literally, right after we had the conversation, she shot me a text like the next morning. She's like, "How's your peeper?" And I literally could not stop laughing for like 10 minutes. I was like, it's hard to believe you're a medical professional.
Oh man, I love it.
Yeah, she's a silly goose.
Well, I think it's time to pardon the pun.
We're all gonna freaking remember episode 37. Just the poor visuals that people are going to be carrying out at this episode, man.
No. But the focus should be strong like bull, last a long time. Still going. Like Vince Vaughn from Old School.
Still holding.
Still holding.
Wow. All right. Well, there's some stuff in here that we've discussed, finding peace after significant setback or loss. And all of us have had it, and all of us will have more of it. And if it's not you right now, it's someone you know, for sure, in your circle. And there are, in this conversation, we've talked about things that have worked for us, like actual things. We're not talking about theoretical constructs, things we've read. We're like, what has worked for us in these situations? I'm sure you guys out there have had others, maybe some better ones. And if you could share them with us, we'll push it out to the community. But there was the concept of hug the cactus, because the pain will bring humility, and then there's going to be a breakthrough. That was from Raf. There was choosing the bad news and embracing the new normal from me. There was Mike with old him and new him, transitioning from anger, I'm not good enough, comparing himself with others, is this ever going to end, to the new gratitude for having the situational person in your life ever, that you either win or learn, which is a great one. Can I or do I want to try again? And how can I find peace again? Start with a smile. Raf had his comment around positive reframing, having a goal of getting to the place of acceptance. And I know that I certainly had that experience of having the moment of peace descend in the middle of what could objectively be the part of getting the really bad news, because there'd been enough research done to really appreciate how far down the bad news could go. And then that gives you an idea of where you really are, that there's a transition to gratitude and you can get the actions necessary to move forward. And I feel like perspective is the step that gets you into that framework of gratitude and actions. Did either of you guys have any last thoughts you wanted to drop out there on this really very, very powerful topic?
No, I'm
Done?
good, man.
Yeah,
Just wish everybody a good week on my end.
Yeah,
you've spoken enough, Raf. You've said enough.
I don't really have anything for the topic, but what I'd just like to say is I am thinking about and praying for the people of the United States and the Midwest. If people aren't tracking, there was a pretty significant train accident where there was massive amounts of chemicals that were burning, and it's affecting the entire Midwest, with animals are dying at a massive rate and the water table is infected. And this is going to be an ecological disaster labeled in the history books. And it's not getting the attention that I think it needs. And, I can't really do anything from here, but if you're not aware of the situation, like put down the posts about, irrelevant crap and see what you can do to help or donate or make awareness of what's going on, because it's absolutely sickening and terrible to see the stories coming out of this place. So I don't know. I just wanted to speak on that, and it's just sickening to look at this week.
Well, that's something I know I need to look into because I've not heard of it before now. But thanks very much for all of your attention, sticking with us. Tough topics sometimes, best shared with a bit of humor. So I appreciate, Raf, you taking the time to share that with us, because, I don't know, did you get personal then? I can't remember.
No, but I if you want to end it, I could just show you guys my peeper so you guys know that it's got a full bill of health. I'm just okay. Okay, the offer's always on the table. The offer, I believe the young kids call that a D pick, but I won't. You could, anyways. Offer's always on the table.
Put the ugly peeper on the table.
We'll see you all next week. Take care.